You're listening to the Persistence Mastery Podcast to give your communication skills the clarity edge with your host, Paul Leon.
Well, happy 4th of July. There won't be a podcast episode, obviously, on the 4th of July. And I really want to take the time to thank all the listeners out there who have grown this podcast. And if this hits your radar, you like the content, leave a review. That really helps the channel a lot. It helps people find this information to where we can help sales managers give their communication skills the clarity edge. And then check out persistencemastery.com. The website's been updated recently. And follow me on LinkedIn. I value the connection. I value growing that network and really associating myself with other like-minded individuals who want to elevate their communication skills. So with that said, we're going to focus on prioritizing self-care in this episode. And I want to hit the topics here. When I talk about prioritizing self-care as a sales leader, is one of the things you got to think about, at least in my experience, is how do you spend time setting boundaries? That's the first thing I want you to reflect on. And the hours you stick with, and how do you set those boundaries with your teammates and coworkers? That's the first thing I really want you to take time to focus on. And how you can kind of make those boundaries more effective is you got to focus also on, after you've set boundaries, is what downtime can I look forward to? And this is going to be really hard point, especially if you're an extremely task oriented manager who maybe is not so people oriented. You may give yourself at times, which also I want to recommend if you are that task oriented manager who doesn't believe in downtime, that you got to work 100 hours a week. My concern for you, if you are that person, is what is that doing in other areas of your life? And I think it's a good time this holiday week, 4th of July, to step back and say, what can I do to give myself more mental health? The next thing is mindfulness and possibly some type of meditation system or practice that you can do. Whether it's just simple stretching, doesn't have to be called yoga, something you can do to clear your mind. I know for myself personally, when I first got into sales, I was working 80 plus hours a week. I was making hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. I remember my first sales job, I used to wake up at 4:45 a.m. I'd get everything ready and I would start flyering cars at 6 in the morning till 8 in the morning. And then at 8:30 a.m., I would be on the phone till 11 o'clock a.m. And then somewhere around 11:30, I'd get something to eat, snack, and then I would still be on the phone or connecting with customers from 11:30 to 3:34. And then I would then go flyer more cars and then come back to the office around 6 o'clock at night and make calls till 8 o'clock at night. And I would do that pretty consistently. And that was an intense time for me. That was an intense time. When I look back and I look at all the massive hours, I realized that if I had set more boundaries, and, John C. Maxwell says, it's not the hours you put in, it's what you put into the hours. And I look at all those hours I spent, and I wish I would have focused my time in those hours effectively more rather than just falling into the trap of, well, if I just give more time, I'll get more results. This is a pretty big false prophecy we fall into. Yes, you want to be efficient. Yes, you want to have your systems. You want to have everything you need to be an effective manager, but you need to take this time this week and really step back and say, how can I help my self-care? And the other thing I also want to lean into is, after this break, after this downtime this week and post 4th of July, you know, ask yourself, is there new technology I need to learn to grow? Spend time with, Maybe there's a new system. I know a system I like recently is the inbox zero method. When I use my emails, it makes a massive amount of difference. And I encourage you to go on YouTube, just type in inbox zero method. There's a ton of creative artists, contributors that talk about this method of giving yourself 1 to 2 hours back once you put that system in place. So, again, what technology can you use? What technology is there that can help you be more efficient so you can invest that time elsewhere toward productive results versus busy work? And I also want to speak on the importance of taking care of your health. Now, not knowing your background, not knowing your fitness, I used to be a manager at a CrossFit gym, and I liked that experience because what it taught me was how to coach people, how to write training plans, how to work with other like minded coaches, and really tried to dive into that world. And I used to be somebody when I first got into sales, I used to be over 250 pounds. And then I lost that weight through a strong fitness regimen because I wanted to change. And I can tell you the mental difference it took on me when I got on the other side of being in better shape. So spend time, after you eat a bunch of hot dogs, burgers, or whatever food you decide to grill out, and watching the fireworks, spend time with, once I'm done eating this food, or what type of fitness regimen do I need to get back? 'Cause I just consumed about 12,000, 15,000 calories. And the average pound of a calorie is somewhere between, I believe, 3,000 to 3,500. So we'll probably have to work together there. And the biggest thing I will say as I speak on prioritizing self care and why this is important, why do you need to spend time investing in this? Simply put, if you're overworked, if you don't take that time back to give yourself grace, giving yourself permission to just grow as a professional, what'll happen organically is you could start to become toxic and you wouldn't even know it. You could start to become somebody who's overworked, bitter, angry if you don't give yourself grace, if you don't prioritize self care. I've found, I was talking with my wife over dinner, and I remember she was reflecting with me. We were just talking about like just the idea, like these data points on how managers spend 50 to 80% of their time dealing with toxic conflict. And there are some people out there who are toxic, and there are some managers out there who are toxic, and sometimes they don't even know it. And I'm not telling you, whoever's listening to this, that you need to give them permission or give them more grace because you feel bad for them. I'm not saying that at all. Who I'm speaking to in this podcast episode is if you're someone who's a manager or just an individual who happens to hear this episode and you haven't prioritized self care, the trap you may fall into is being a toxic manager on accident. And here's why. And this is something I wrote on a piece of paper. Maybe somebody else has said this. You don't want to be a poisonous individual to others. That's the worst thing you can do. You can quickly lose rapport. You can quickly lose trust. You can quickly lose efficiency by just being poisonous to others. And the reason why is, let's say you get promoted from your current position, or let's say you want to move elsewhere and you haven't really taken care of these challenges, and you're someone who may be a poisonous individual. Well, when you promote poison, people get sick. Let me say that again because I want that to resonate. When we promote poison, people get sick. And I'm not talking about medical, obviously. I'm talking about our communication. I'm talking about our quick reaction. I'm talking about not spending time with the impact of our communication and asking ourselves, does it line up with our intent as an individual? So, again, the call to action is prioritize self care because you're worth it, and you're worth the win this 4th of July week.
Thank you for listening to the Persistence Mastery Podcast. Subscribe to where you listen to podcasts. And if you want to hire Paul to train or speak for your team, visit persistencemastery.com and fill out the request training form.